Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish I could say I'm happy to participate in this debate today, but let me rephrase that. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to participate in this debate today because there's been a lot of incredibly horrendous things happening in my community over the last couple of weeks. Yesterday, I asked the Minister of Justice when legislation would be brought in to stop repeat sex offenders from being released into the community. I made reference to the case of Daniel Senecal, who lives in the city where I live currently. In fact, he assaulted a 3-year-old toddler, sexually assaulted in the most vile way. He had been recently released after sexually assaulting and being sentenced to prison for the assault on a 12-year-old boy. So forgive me if I get a little emotional with this, Mr. Speaker, because it's tearing my community apart. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but the street on which this crime happened is the street I effectively grew up on. My grandparents lived on that street. But within hours, the community stepped up. We had a vigil in downtown Welland, and hundreds and hundreds of people showed up within hours of this person being arrested. Victims came up to me to tell me their stories, how they had been abused in their childhoods, or how relatives had been abducted, and the pain and the anguish and the scars that they go through and carry with them all their lives. And they pleaded with me to come to this place and stand on this floor and talk about this issue. Municipal leaders also stepped up and have been writing to the federal government to sorry, somebody's trying to show me a note here. Municipal leaders have also stepped up to ask the federal government to change the criminal code for violent offenders. A few days after the annual Firefighters Memorial was being held here in Ottawa, and the chief and the deputy chief and a number of people from the Welland Fire and Emergency Services came to Ottawa for that ceremony. But among them was my son, who was also a firefighter in Welland, but among them were the two first on scene at this horrific crime. So I brought all of them to the floor of the House of Commons, and we stood in front of the mace for at least an hour. And they all told me about their experiences, but the two that were first on scene with this horrific crime, it's hard to describe the emotions that they felt, but what they felt after coming to this place and talking about the need to change the criminal code to keep violent repeat sex offenders behind jail. I'm splitting my time, Mr. Speaker, with the member for Elgin St. Thomas, London South, just to clarify. There you go. In any case, the firefighters who came to the floor of the House of Commons really appreciated that opportunity to come to Ottawa, to stand on the floor of the House of Commons where we passed these laws. And all of them urged me to urge the government to introduce changes immediately. Now, the Minister of Justice said they're going to be introducing changes sometime in the fall. Well, why do we have to wait till the fall? It's not like we don't know what needs to happen right now. I had an incident in my constituency office a couple of weeks ago, and one of the responding officers from the Niagara Regional Police Service, whom I'd known as a customer in one of my businesses, and he came to the office, and we walked around, and I asked him, he's a relatively new constable with the NRP, and I asked him, what are you finding in the streets? Are you getting a lot of repeat offenders? Are you actually arresting the same person over and over again, as we've been hearing across the country. And he looked at me and said, "You have no idea how many times I've arrested the same person over and over and over." He said within a 2-month period, he arrested one person who had been arrested and released on a promise to appear. He had arrested him 30 times for car theft, break and enter, assault, you name it. This guy had been charged with everything, and then on a promise to appear was released back into the public. He also said it's oftentimes when they don't even bother arresting people anymore because they know that it's simply just a catch and release. That's got to stop in this country. We're better than that. And the violent criminals play the system. There's no reason why this individual, Daniel Senecal, should have been released 6 months early on a year-and-a-half sentence after violently sexually assaulting a young boy, and then within months violently and beating her within an inch of her life, a little girl in Welland. Our communities are under siege. And I'm not exaggerating this. My leader had pointed out the changes in our country and the statistics and how things have changed in Canada over the last number of years. It's not a slogan to say that the government has been soft on crime. Much of the changes that we have seen and much of the criminals that are being released have been released through changes over the last 10 years. The Conservatives are advocating serious changes to the criminal code so we don't have catch and release. These violent criminals need to stay in jail, and as my leader said, throw away the key. It is also as my colleague has said, that's what the public is asking us to do. We have a responsibility in this House to represent the interests of our constituents. And I would urge the government, don't wait till the fall. Introduce this legislation. I agree with the Minister of Justice. We don't have to make this a partisan issue. We need to put these criminals behind bars. Don't let them on the street. Don't let them reoffend. For the sake of little E, this 3-year-old toddler in the city of Welland, give her some hope, give her family some hope, give my community some hope, give our country some hope. That vile, abhorrent, despicable human beings like Daniel Senecal will never see the light of day again. That's my message today, and I'm grateful for my community to sending me here. I'll be presenting a petition on their behalf. They're going door to door now. That's how many people have stepped up, and this is not a partisan thing. People that have shown up in my constituency office have wanted to get this petition asking the federal government to change the criminal code. My guess right now is we're going to hit about 100,000 signatures. That is an amazing demonstration of democracy in action. People in my community want to see change, and I'm hoping to present that petition to the floor of the House of Commons in the next week. And I look forward to the questions on the floor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm encouraged by a number of the words that the member has stated, in particular, maybe putting some of the partisan politics to the side. When I think in terms of the commitment that has been made, whether it's from the member opposite to his constituents or the Prime Minister to Canadians, bail reform is critically important. And the Prime Minister has made a commitment, a substantial commitment, that we will see bail reform legislation brought in. The issue is going to be, in part, yes, after all the consultation, we have the legislation, is that we're going to need to get that bail legislation, hopefully, passed quicker as opposed to slower. Not necessarily saying it has to pass everything, but would he not agree, seeing it at the very least get to that committee stage where we can get those outside experts coming to committee would be a positive thing, and would he support that?
London South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's not a word of that I can fundamentally disagree with, although I'd like to see the legislation. The fall is it's not good enough just to say we're going to bring in bail reform. And fundamentally, I'm not just talking about bail reform. I'm talking about people that are being released after violent sexual assaults beating children within an inch of their lives. That's the problem, letting these vile human beings out before they've served their sentence, and a sentence that is not nearly long enough. This individual should never have seen the light of day. It's a second conviction for violently assaulting a child. What more do we need in this country to show that a person like that doesn't deserve bail, he deserves jail?
Questions et commentaires, questions and comments, le député de Berthier-Masquinongé.
The member for Berthier-Masquinongé. I'd like my colleague's opinion on something. We are talking about law and order today, about public safety. The Bloc Québécois put forward a proposal to remove the religious exemption from hate speech because it can lead to truly awful situations. Does my colleague agree with our proposal? Because we take it that the true intention behind today's bill is to ensure law and order, so it would thus follow that he would support our suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must admit I am not well informed enough to actually talk intelligently about that, and hopefully the honourable member will be able to spend some time with me to give me his views on that. But my comments today, and I think the intention of the motion that is before the House, is to talk about serious crimes and the need for serious reforms in the criminal code. So I look forward to being engaged, whether it's in this House or in committee, on the legislation that comes forward, because it is desperately and sorely needed in this country.
Questions and comments, questions et commentaires, the Honourable Member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And my question, my honourable colleague, it actually builds on the question from the member from Winnipeg North, who keeps bringing up this promised bail reform. I just wanted to set the record straight so my learned colleague here that's relatively new to the House understands this is the same promises we've been hearing here for years by this Liberal government. Yeah. It's something we've been calling for. Well, my question specifically is just give the member an opportunity to expand on what he's hearing in his local riding from his law enforcement, because it's something I'm hearing day in, day out from my law enforcement about their frustrations rearresting these same violent repeat offenders.
Honourable Member for Niagara South.
Look, as I said in my remarks, I've spoken to many first responders, from the fire service to the police and the community, and people in the medical community, and people who are involved in healthcare, who have to deal with a lot of the issues of people that are being brought to hospital, that are victims of violence. It's widespread, it's pervasive, and it's got to stop. This crime that is in my community, where we used to be able to leave the doors open, we felt safe. This is the street that I've talked about with this individual, is the street I grew up on, and it's not safe today. It's not safe in my community, and you're absolutely right, my colleague is absolutely right. The first responders are fed up, and they want to see change, and I hope to God that we can see it very soon.